From the moment the game was released, Undertale left an irreparable scar on the internet. It's been loved, it's been hated. Every line of code, every letter of dialogue, every note of music has been analyzed under the smallest microscope by dozens of eager fans, looking to slurp up any extra content found in the game. Without going into a full review of the game, that's next year, Undertale is a touching story on the concept of free will and how we treat one another. A message a lot of people resonated with, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. After almost 9 years of this game being a thing, it has gained the reputation for having some of the most passionate fans in gaming history, alongside fan bases like Sonic and FNAF. What makes Undertale so weird is how small the game was compared to the volume of fans it was creating. Between 2015 and 2021, there was only about 9 hours of gameplay for anything Undertale related, which was completely dwarfed by the other two game franchises I mentioned. Despite that, Undertale has some of the most complex and specific fan work I have ever seen. The lore of Undertale AUs matches the original game in size, but there are many more of them. We got AUs about personality swaps, timeline changes, self-inserts, World War II. Whatever you're thinking, there's probably been an AU on it. But a question you're no doubt asking right now is, why did this happen? Why are there so many Undertale AUs? Undertale was only 6 hours long. The game intentionally feeds you just enough to make you happy with the ending, but not satisfied. Never satisfied. This is where a lot of players go down the no mercy route for their own curiosity. Not all of them, however. Some people's dissatisfaction led them to an even darker place. DeviantArt. The question posed by the no mercy route was what happened when you killed every monster. But for a lot of these writers and artists, the question became, what if these characters went beyond Undertale? But before that, look at these numbers. Aren't they just pathetic? Hi, Border Orange is here. Multi-millionaire, boy failure, and epic influencer. Sorry, I almost threw up. I want to hit a nondescript YouTube goal so my parents will actually pick up my phone calls and you can help. If you're enjoying what you're seeing so far or have watched my other videos, then hit subscribe. I also have a Discord server. There's also a Twitter and an Instagram for posting about my mundane life, a Twitch that I try to stream on at least once a month, and a third in Patreon because I want all of your money. For legal reasons, I have to clarify that was a joke. So if any of these perks seem enticing, then check them out. Anyway, back to the video. The ending of the Undertale pacifist run leaves the player with a pretty bittersweet feeling. On the one hand, all the effort we spent trying to understand these characters paid off, as they have been given the ideal life away from the underground. Papyrus has a real car, Asriel gets to be a gardener, Toriel is a teacher, and Undyne gets to be gay. But there is another person who doesn't get to join the rest of the characters in these final credits. Like, canonically, I mean, because I know someone's gonna bring up in the comments if I don't say that. Asriel Dreemur, the late heir to the monster throne, who will be forced to regress back to the soulless flower they were when the player first started their adventure. This being the final time we ever see Asriel makes sense narratively. But the thought of a future where Asriel gets to see his family and friends again is something that would always be on the player's mind. And that's why only a few weeks after Undertale's release, we were graced with Dreemur Reborn. In this AU, Frisk was able to share their soul with Asriel, allowing the two of them to experience this freedom together. This AU is a lot more relaxed than a lot of the other ones I plan on talking about, but what makes this one stand out to me is that by giving Asriel this freedom, we are able to see character interactions that never happened in the original game, which means characters have to face their past in new ways as well. The actual plot of Undertale still happened in this universe, so the core themes of the game are being enforced. Each character is still expected to face the consequences of their actions. All this comic did was act as a bridge for that to be visualized in new ways.
Frisk! 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 Frisk, are you in there? Please, say something. Anything. Asriel? Oh my goodness! It's you! It's really you!
Ah, of course. This must be so confusing to you. One moment. Do you recognize me now?
It's me! Your best friend!
While Frisk did give everyone the best possible outcome, there are still countless other ones who have slaughtered every monster in the underground for no reason, other than trying to satiate their own morbid curiosity. So, to offer this opportunity to Asriel, as if Chara hasn't seen Frisk cut Asriel into pieces hundreds of times, Frisk must truly believe they are above consequences.
Chara! I've missed you so much. Oh goodness, it has been so long.
Don't worry, Asriel. We won't be separated ever again. Once I take your new soul, then we'll be... Asriel? Is something wrong? Ah, I see how it is. You must have misunderstood. I am not asking for permission.
It's kind of hard to really say Chara or Asriel are being unreasonable in what they're doing right now. From Asriel's perspective, Frisk has just saved him and the world from himself. He just came to terms with the fact that Chara wasn't the best person. So now, when they mysteriously return with the intent to take Asriel's soul, his apprehension makes sense. For Chara, they've seen what Frisk has done. I mean, sure, in this timeline, they did the right thing, but that could never absolve them of the countless times they didn't. This then leads into a full-on Undertale-style boss fight. I don't want to get too distracted, but the art for this AU is actually incredible, and the fact that there is now a full-on boss fight to convey the story is also incredible. This is going to be a very subjective thing, since Chara's characterization is like barely a thing, but I believe Dreemur Reborn's portrayal of Chara is one of the most accurate portrayals to the actual game I have ever seen. Asriel has always been a loving person at heart. Despite humans being the ones who left them in the underground, he welcomed Chara into his family with open arms. Chara, however, Chara could show great compassion to people, but there was a little bit of darkness in them too. They could hate, and they could be cold if they thought it was for the greater good. As seen when the humans attacked their monster human hybrid body, it was Chara who was ready to attack them to protect their brother. It was Chara who sacrificed themselves to save Asgore, and it would be Chara who would save Asriel from an even bigger threat. Of course, Chara would never want to fight Asriel like this. They show hesitation at multiple points in the fight, but they know how Frisk is, what Frisk has done. So even if it means taking Asriel's soul by force, they will see it through until the end. The reason this fight is already so impactful to me is because of this determination clash these characters are currently having. And Asriel given a new source of determination via a second chance at life, versus Chara, their sibling, determined to end everything, to finally free this world from its final threat by any means necessary. The parallels between this and the ending of the genocide run aren't lost on me either. Asriel being the final person in Chara's way. Just one last attack and it's over. But just like the same scene in Undertale, Chara couldn't bring themselves to do it. Chara fades away, leaving Frisk and Asriel by the flower bed that we see at the start of Undertale. This doesn't destroy Asriel's innocence though. This doesn't make him jaded or anything like that. I think his first words after this are pretty beautiful. This same level of expert character writing fills the series as well. There are other AUs where I get taken out of the moment by a lack of understanding by the creator. Rah, media literacy or something, I don't know. Something I didn't know I wanted until I received it was Sans' reaction to all of this. We know from Flowey that Sans has had to put him in the dirt a few times. So how would he react to Asriel looking him directly in the eyes in the Judgment Hall? I don't think it was a coincidence that Asriel comes face to face with his past as Flowey in this room specifically. Until the genocide route, Flowey is the main antagonist of the game. After endless resets, he became completely apathetic to the existence of the creatures in the underground, saving and killing them over and over again until he was finally saved by Frisk. While Asriel was in this altered state due to having no soul, he still feels responsible. After a back and forth with the very image of his self-loathing, he asks Frisk a very simple question. Why did you save me? Their answer was also solid, saying it was only right since they managed to save everyone else, eliminating that part of Asriel that hated himself so much. Everything's okay. He can go home now. The question I wanted answered was how Asriel's parents would react to this, and the comic also delivered on that. The ending was just incredible. Oh, fuck! There hasn't been an entry for nearly 10 months. I'm gonna scream. It really sucks that Dreemur Reborn never really got a proper ending, since it was so good and it was going in such a good direction. Oh, it doesn't matter, it's fine. So why would I even bother talking about it? Well, apart from wanting all of you to suffer as I have, Dreemur Reborn is probably the best addition to Undertale's story that I've read, giving us a hopeful future where all of the characters are just able to live their lives in peace. We saw these very accurate interactions too, and because of that, I'm not even mad we didn't get a proper ending. This was more than enough, and that's pretty lit. But let's stop focusing on the future and look towards the past instead. I started spinning on my chair when I said that, aren't I cool? In my opinion, one of the funniest parts about being an Undertale fan is the existence of WD Gaster, a character who might exist and might also be responsible for a lot of the mysteries in Undertale. Ask any fan about their Gaster theories and you'll get paragraphs upon paragraphs of text. You ask them about anything confirmed about him in the game and stock tumbleweed sound effects. Why I think this is quite funny is because Gaster is in the game for about 5 seconds. That hasn't stopped Gaster from being an important figure in almost every Undertale AU I'll be talking about today. There are plenty that give Gaster a backstory. No, not today. The one I want to talk about also gives Sans and Papyrus one too. The common trope for Gaster is to write him as a pure evil character. Handplates attempts to humanize him a lot more.
Stay still and try to relax. It should be relatively painless at this intensity. And then as time goes on...
Well, as much as you can with a man like him. Gaster and Asgore have been given the unenviable task of trying to figure out a way to free Monster Society from the underground. The problem they have is that Asgore is one of the kindest souls down there. He doesn't want to kill anyone, but has no choice if he ever hopes to see the sunset again. It crushes him just that little more every time he ends another child's life, and Gaster notices this. Asgore isn't capable of being cold-hearted, but Gaster is. With things growing more dire by the day, Gaster's experiments get less ethical, creating clones of himself that would become capable of destroying the barrier. Sans and Papyrus. Unfortunately, he didn't account for his clones becoming fragmented. Sans has all of the software while Papyrus has the hardware. While Gaster was originally apprehensive to treating either of his test subjects with any amount of kindness, he comes around to it and becomes a begrudging father to them. Gaster is the father who stepped up. That doesn't work here. Unfortunately for the two brothers, Asgore kills another human, and with the pressure getting even larger, Gaster attempts to force further evolution. He puts Sans and Papyrus through some of the worst experiments in order to gain some sort of reaction out of them, destroying them and forcing the other to literally pick up the pieces, with this just destroying their mental states. Gaster tries to tell himself that this needs to happen for the sake of monster kind, that he's the only one who could stomach all of this cruelty. He's the only one. The only one.
Stop caring about me. It'll be easier if you don't. I'm really worried about him. He can't keep this up much longer.
Asgore isn't a killer. He isn't capable of being cold-hearted. But Gaster, he can do all of these inhumane acts because he knows the end will justify the means. Or that's the lie he tells himself anyway. Sans and Papyrus are born from Gaster. All of their traits come from Gaster. So the mere existence of Papyrus proves that Gaster can't truly detach himself from what he's doing. I think that's why he tries so hard to change Papyrus's outlook on life. To try and tell himself that he can kill that part of him that is repulsed by what he's doing to these children. That part of him that comes out especially with his final conversation between Alphys, before he gets pushed into the core and is removed from the timeline forever. My feelings towards Handplates are a lot more different than Dreemur Reborn, cause this shit is depressing. Even when Sans and Papyrus get moved into a better life, their trauma still guides their actions. Even when Gaster is literally non-existent. Even when Gaster is literally non-existent. He has burnt these two so hard they have nightmares where he isn't even there. So basically, it's kind of like real life. I swear I'm not trying to take shots at people this time, I'm being so serious. Yeah, Handplates is super depressing, but at least there are moments of bittersweetness. That sounds like a word. I will admit, I actually haven't completed Handplates, as I've just been watching the comic dub, which isn't up to date yet. Or at least at the time of recording and writing this. But check out anyway. If you like people writing lore for a character that barely exists in Undertale, then you'll have a fun time. Being Sans the Skeleton is suffering. You wake up, just like every other day, and have to watch a ticking time bomb with the power to control your entire reality. Fumble around and make bad choices only to force you to wake up, just like every other day, and watch them pretend they never made those choices in the first place, and then force you to wake up, just like every other day. Your brother killed, everyone who lived in your little town turned into literal dust, and you have to fight a losing battle against this thing who won't quit no matter how hard you drag their face into the dirt. And every time they get you, they get their bad ending just for the sake of it. Wouldn't that just drive you mad? Dusttale explores a universe where Sans is capable of actually fighting back, killing all the monsters for the chance of building up enough LV to stop the human. If you're wondering why the visuals look like this, it's because this story only exists in the form of an Ask blog. This is really depressing news. It makes actually doing a section on this basically impossible, since people would just be looking at text boxes the whole time. Fuck. These first three were pretty important to bring up to me, because each of them tackle a different part in the Undertale timeline. The unrelenting past, the hopeful future, and the foggy present. These three AUs managed to take the original Undertale timeline and create their own thing with it. Their fanbase is making theories and fanworks about them, but these are all still somewhat limited by the worlds they're based in. All three of these have a logical ceiling before their premise kind of falls apart. I talked about creators breaking the boundaries caused by Undertale's duration. The only logical step left was to break the boundary caused by basing your story in the world of Undertale. One day, an artist called Popcorn Prince posted on Tumblr a very interesting drawing of Sans, dressed and acting like Papyrus. In a normal fan base, stuff like this just happens. It's big for a few days and then falls off. Undertale is not a normal fan base though. Very quickly we started getting swapped versions of all of the characters. Sans becoming the goofball obsessed with capturing the human, Papyrus taking his place in the judgment hall as the final judge of the player's actions, Undyne is the cartoon obsessed royal scientist of the underground, and Alphys is the tiny leader of the royal guard. Napster Bloke gets a huge glow up, taking Metaton's place as the biggest star down there, and my goat becomes a fucking loser. The point I'm trying to make with this is that Underswap started as a simple drawing, and due to major fan interest, it went from a basic stories of characters swapping personalities to a detailed story of the subtle changes made during the swap. I got really giddy reading through the Tumblr posts for Underswap because a lot of the more niche things we know about the characters were delivered by fans asking questions and suggesting ideas. We know so much about Sans and Papyrus and how they fight, which kind of makes sense. But then we also know about the side characters who were random encounters like Aaron and Chara being swapped. Already insane that this is a thing, but what if there was another one? Victor the Underfell also posted a single drawing on Tumblr one day, but this time with Toriel. This then exploded. In a short time we received fellivized versions of all of the Undertale cast. Oh, what does fellivized mean? Well, it's this fanbase's term for characters who are changed for the sake of fitting into Underfell. Is this edgy? Yes. A guilty pleasure of mine is this type of media though. The darker story of Undertale told with complete earnest is what sells this idea. If you had a character turning around every 40 seconds to talk about how absurd the story is, I think it would fail. The same thing applies if the plot was just fully miserable the entire time. But Underfell Frisk acts as the shining light in their world. They try just as hard, if not harder than their canon counterpart to befriend the monsters. Both of these AUs are really popular. They both have fan-made fights that I haven't beaten because they're too hard. Lots of fan art and deviations with their own timelines. The peak of this absurdity was when both of these AUs were merged together, creating fellifized Underswap characters. Swap Fell. Then someone had the idea to do the same thing in reverse, creating Fell Swap. And this is arguably still quite tame, as this was the era where we were getting really out there topics. Horrortale, the Undertale AU that takes place after the ending of the neutral route. This is the fully depressing one where the monsters are legit dying of starvation. It also contains an epic version of Sans with his head cracked open. Yeah! Outertale is Undertale in space. Monsters were sent there instead of the underground, which is objectively a cooler place to be. Banished, okay buddy. This AU has its own pacifist, neutral, and genocide runs, and a version of Sans with one of my favorite color schemes. Echotail takes place in a universe where the core malfunctions and erases every character in the underground except Gaster Sans and Core Frisk. This one hits, a lot harder post-pandemic. The imagery of empty towns was there with the genocide route, but having this story starting because of a random mistakes makes my brain relate it more to what happened in 2020. Not sure why. But somehow we still get deeper than this. With all of these AUs floating around, someone had the idea to create a version of Sans that governs the creation of these AUs. Ink Sans, who inspires other creators to make more AUs. To counteract that, somebody created Error Sans, the opposite of Ink Sans, who goes around destroying AUs. He was also on the thumbnail of Super Eye Patch Wolf's Undertale video, so that's cool. Things were building up at an unprecedented rate. These AUs alone had huge fan bases making so many different things. Art, music, games, the whole 9 yards of content. The layers upon layers of content in this fan base is mind-boggling. I'm convinced that if a person tried to consume every Undertale AU, their brain would get legitimately fried. Why would anyone even do that anyway? There is absolutely no benefit in committing all of these to memories, especially Glitchtail. Did I mention how bad that one is? But here's the thing, there is a reason. If you want the best possible understanding of the final AU of this video, Underverse. Here's a question I want to pose to everyone watching at home. Have you ever wanted to perfect something? It doesn't have to be some noble, wholly selfless goal. Hell, it doesn't even have to create any tangible improvement to any aspect of you or someone else's life. It can be something as grand as becoming the best player in your sport, or something as small as mastering Green Hill Zone Act 1. I don't know, there's like 10 of them, so pick your poison. The only thing that matters is that at one point in your life, you wanted to perfect your craft more than anything in the world. You are willing to sacrifice sleep, flake on social events, make this one thing completely consume your life for that rare moment of satisfaction. If you've experienced this feeling, you've also experienced the moments in between, when whatever you're doing doesn't feel quite right and isn't hitting the heights you thought it would. That crushing feeling of a plateau, that all of your time and effort will all be blown away into the wind, never noticed, never acknowledged. How far would you go to make sure your work is immune from all of the scrutiny that comes with creating anything? How far would you go to make sure your work withstands the tests of time? This human feeling is the primary cause for everything that happens in Underverse and its prequel series, Xtale. Underverse is the culmination of years of Undertale fan works being merged into one massive love letter to the community. Normally, something like this was bound to just be silly fan service that has no real substance. But once again, Undertale is not a normal fan base. Underverse is legitimately good. The art and animation, the whole way round is impressive. There's an attempt to make all of these different characters act like themselves. God, I wish all animated Undertale AUs did this. Okay, I should probably start talking about it instead of ragging on Glitchtale. Just like on the thumbnail, Underverse contains a bunch of Sanses from a whole load of timelines. Some good, some bad, some... What sells this concept is the fact that something like this has already been hinted at in the original game. And the fact that the core focus is always on Sans. A choice I'd like to imagine was intentional was almost every Sans that appears in more than one episode. They all have very different views and still believe that all of their actions were morally good. I need to protect my home. I need to stop the mass creation of timelines. I need to save and recreate my entire world. It's the one flaw each Sans seems to have. This idea that their way is the right way because of the hells they've seen so many times. The suffering doesn't end there too, because another scarily common trend with all of these Sans is their failure to save what matters to them most over and over again. Each timeline we see is erased within 1 or 2 episodes. The best these characters can do is run away to a blank world with all of these other variants they don't know or agree with. Every chance they get with a new timeline is ripped away and cut to pieces by this anomaly. No. Invader, an unknown human child wrecking the lives of monsters far weaker than themselves. Sans was all too familiar with that life. Having his world reset so many times by the human wasn't enough to completely break his will. But after seeing an entity with the power to rewrite his very existence, the only thing left for him to say is that there isn't even the point in pretending he could get a happy ending. Being Sans the Skeleton is suffering. You get a good ending and it's reset. The king is killed and Undine usurps the queen. Everything is reset. Everyone is being killed and you're somehow the last line of defense for your entire race. You either beat the human down enough for them to reset things back to 0, or they kill you, destroy everything, and then do it again anyway. This would be enough to drive anyone mad. And yet Sans still fights every single time. And now he blinks? What could he have possibly seen to cause this reaction? Well, the thing that finally crushed Sans was the answer to the question I asked at the beginning of this section. How far would you go to obtain perfection? There are technically 4 antagonists in Underverse, but all of them trace back to the actions of one man. A man I have purposely gone out of my way to obscure for the sake of dramatic effect. Guys, it's Gaster again. As much as I'd like to say Gaster is pure evil and his intentions serve no greater purpose, I really can't. Gaster was given the rare power to completely overwrite a timeline and make changes that aren't even possible for someone with the reset button. So like a lot of people in his position, he tried his best to create a good world for his children, and he succeeded. Chara and Frisk were happy. But is that good enough? The next hour and 20 minutes are focused completely on a man being consumed by his ambition. Gaster tries to create the best universe in the multiverse, fabricating grief in order to see what happens, overwriting his children to start a genocide route. Nothing is off the table for him. And to be fair to him, none of these things are real. Because of his obsession with perfection and his self-imposed exile from the rest of the world, he genuinely believes that all of monster and humankind are just toys he can break apart and rebuild as many times as he wants. All except his two kids, Chara and Frisk, were able to maintain all of their experiences in the other timelines. They are aware of his worst sins. Throughout Xtale, Gaster continues to stray further from humanity and his original goal. He truly believes that there is no one in the whole multiverse who can judge him for his sins. This is obviously untrue. Frisk and Chara act like black boxes for Gaster's actions. They've lived through literally all of it. One of them lived through all of it. Gaster's actions trickle down to Chara, and I mean that as literally as possible. The two of them share their thoughts and feelings, turning Chara into a much colder and more manipulative person. Gaster pushing further and further is contrasted by Chara losing their mind and forcing Gaster into worse situations. They finally managed to get all of monsterkind on their side and against Gaster. They are this close to finally removing him from their lives and ending this cruel cycle. But aren't we forgetting someone? Just like every other Sans, he came in right at the final moment to ruin the humans' plans one final time, taking their soul and ending up in the void. This causes Sans and Chara of the Xtale universe to become the primary antagonists for the original series, Underverse. But there is still one last antagonist we have yet to talk about. There was one person behind Gaster's inspiration to make the perfect Undertale AU. The person who gave him the platform to do all of the evil shit he does throughout the series. And who is the type of person to do something like that? What? He's just a little guy. Ink Sans, the true antagonist of the Underverse series, and the actual reason everything went to complete shit. And also a remix of the previous question I asked. What would you do to break away from the boredom of the same old every single day? Ink Sans, the Sans variant who inspired other creators to make AUs. Despite being the in-universe reason why these AUs exist, he can't actually feel emotions. The best he can do is consume those created by the AUs. The AUs he can no longer create because of Sans, who originally wanted to destroy every timeline, until the two reached a truce. Each and every character is doing their best to make what they consider the best timeline for completely selfish reasons. But because they're all Sans, they are under the belief that they are right. See how everything went around in a nice little circle there? God, Undertale fans are so cool. Okay, fine. I'll talk about the colossal titan-sized elephant in the room. Nearly all of the stuff I've talked about kind of has a bit of shit behind them. Some stuff just got deleted, like the OG Underswap post, or left on high. Gosh, what a major way to spoil a video, am I right? Here's a picture of a cat as a palette cleanser. As a fan of all of these things, it does really suck that the creators aren't as proud of their own works anymore. Or they're just a piece of shit. And it's easy to get swept up in all of that, and maybe not want to be in this fan base again. But I feel like that would be a massive disservice to basically everyone else in the fandom. Undertale at one point had the unfortunate task of enduring the most ridicule from people in the gaming scene because of its bizarre level of popularity. Even with things quieting down over the years, the Undertale community is still a hydrogen bomb compared to the coughing babies that are other gaming fandoms. It feels kind of lame to say, but there are bound to be people who do insane shit with a community as big as Undertale's. That isn't me trying to dismiss all of the terrible stuff that's happened, but me trying to say, keep your head up, random person making an Undertale AU. Your crown's falling. Don't let this stuff ever discourage you from making something you like, because there are so many skilled people who make incredible things that aren't bad people. Jesus, the only thing that would make this video any more preachy is if I ended this by saying follow your dreams or something. Oh my god! Thanks for watching. For once, I'm actually posting videos at a pretty consistent level now. Isn't that cool, man? I delayed this video. I missed out streaming last week, but I plan to do something for this week to make up for that. So I hope to see you all there. And before I go, I want to thank the Oranges shills who trust me with their money for some reason. Pwap, much appreciated. Martha Mayers, Obscure Oni, Ant, Po Fanatic, Israfel's Fire, and Truly. With that out of the way, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. See you, lads.